So, Forza Horizon 6 is now a month old, and I have some thoughts on that. I mean, I've enjoyed the game so far. I've been playing it pretty much at least 3 times a week for multiple hours for the last month, so it's at least somewhat decent, but I have a collection of thoughts. There's no real order to this, but there is a rough order, so I'll kind of stick to that. So first thing is just the world itself, because going from Horizon 5, where the world was somewhat bland-ish, non-consequential, you could kind of not tell the difference for half of it, this has a substantial difference. There's a marked improvement, there's varied environments from the snow-topped mountain that you can climb to going into Tokyo, there's small island in the east. There's a variety, there's changes, and it helps break up the gameplay because you're not just rallying or racing through the same exact environment for 10 hours straight. I mean, I probably put that much time into both games in around the same amount of time, so the same 3 weeks. I remember Horizon 6 is a lot more because of the variation. It does help that there's actual city infrastructure as well, which is something I'm really appreciating, where you can see most of the map just by riding along the highway. Side note though, I have already 100%ed all the roads in the game, and I'm doing all of the beauty spots, but you know, life gets in the way. Kind of leading on from that though is the gameplay, which is better now that I've adjusted to it, but it is still largely my original complaint, which is where it's just too sticky most of the time. I mean, working out tuning settings is still something that I'm in the middle of, purely because they're very different, and what I had before in Horizon 5 that you all saw when I made videos on that largely doesn't work properly anymore, just because the tuning physics has been completely overhauled since then, and so as a result it just means that you can't tune at the same level you did before, which isn't great, but it means I have to learn that while the upgrade system has mostly remained the same, all those tunes that I used before, they now oversteer massively when going into or out of corners. Just any kind of rotation at high speed causes a spin out. Other than that though, like I said, it has largely remained the same, but there is one key change. Most of the wings are adjustable, as far as I can tell, and most of the cars that I've used so far haven't got the god-awful ugly Forza aero. That is such a change, and it's so helpful considering the last game had that as a massive thing, where you could only, well, all of them pretty much, where most cars just had the big ass ugly wing on the back, regardless of if it was just a racing truck or a supercar or like your Nan's Vauxhall Corsa. They would all have the same wing on the back, which it helps break it up. I've noticed there's a bit more variety, which is nice. So next thing I want to talk about is progression, as progression is kind of too fast still. I mean, I've now got Legend, now got my gold wristband, I've done Legend Island, I've done all the final races of the game. It's still too fast. I mean, you play like, I didn't do any PR stunts, I left them all till afterward, and I was getting like a new wristband every 5 races or so, and I would do all the races, then move on to the next one. I'd max it out almost immediately, and then as a result it means that I probably did it in 4 hours. I probably got to Legend Island in 4 hours because that's all I did, and it probably would have been even faster if I did have more access to fast travel, but you know. So I think staggering out the progression would actually be a lot better, just generally in future, and I hope that that's something they do change. I'm glad they have gone back to the way that it used to be though. That is something that I did mention in my video earlier about hoping for things they change in Horizon 6, which was that I wanted a more linear progression and more restricted on what you could use, and that's what I got, so I can't complain about that, but it progressed too fast. I still do prefer Horizon 1 and 2 system, where your progression was largely more restricted and you had to do more. Another thing that's cool is that well, this is a negative and a positive. There's a flip side where they do have restricted races, but there are so few races in the game compared to Horizon 1 that it doesn't really make much of a difference. Because in Horizon 1, the restricted racing made more sense also, because while it was restricted, you could still largely get your own cars, auto upgrade them, and it would make sense. This one, it doesn't make as much sense. You start with C class, then you go to B class, A, S1, S2. You don't go into R or X because that's another change that's being made. But you start there, you end up at C, you end up at S2. The problem is you can go between those two within about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, which doesn't feel like very much of a jump. I mean, the Need for Speed games, the old Forza games, the Crew 1 and 2, not so much Motorfest, because that's a whole other topic I'll get into another time. They have more limited restriction where you start really ridiculously slow and work up. It feels like much more of a jump. One thing that is completely new to this game that I did completely forget to talk about though is a new kind of race, because Horizon 6 has added toge races into the game, which basically are just races where it's essentially a 1v1 rather than the normal 12 or 8 player races, which is great. It mixes up the game variety, it mixes up what you can do. And honestly, it can only be a good addition. I mean, the more variety that's there is good, but I do think it harms sort of the more restrictive racing that I want. But then again, you can do both at the same time. Need for Speed Payback notoriously had very restrictive cars, and I did actually enjoy that game's progression, although the upgrade system, I will talk about that another time, because that was definitely a way of doing it. However, for now, I think I will just finish touching on that there. They once again did do the previous game cars, which they did for every game pretty much after 3, where you'll get the showcase cars, all the previous games. With this one, they don't have the McLaren Senna at all. I don't know if it's being reserved for a Forzathon. It's just not in the game right now. Probably a licensing thing. I think I discussed that at some point with the Horizon 2 video that I did last year about this time. But right now, there is no McLaren Senna, which is a shame because I wanted to do a video comparing all the showcase cars, and it's not there, so I'm not going to be able to. Instead, they did give the Aston Martin Vulcan though, which is great. I love that car, but it's not the McLaren Senna. It will be a complaint that I'm just going to have to keep going with because, you know, it's not great. Speaking of cars, actually, Forzathon, which is something that anyone who has played this game or any of the last few will know what it is. It's a bunch of challenges, you do them weekly, races, championships, traps, skills, whatever. This system's remained the same, it's not changed. You do things, you get points, you collect those points, you get cars. No change. The main change, though, is that there's no DLC at the moment, so there's less events generally, and I've had some issues with it, but one of them's a bug, the other one's just a skill issue, because unlike the last game where for treasure hunts you would have a radius circle, it will give you a rough indication. You just get a picture in this game and told to work it out, which is either really good if you've got good map knowledge, which so far I have, or really bad if you don't. So yeah, this is going to be a fun thing to see if that stays or changes as the game sort of goes through its life cycle. When it comes to other parts of the Forzathon though, so when it comes to the trial, honestly, probably one of the most disliked parts about Forzathon is the trial, where you have to beat unbeatable driver tars. If they keep that, I'm probably not going to do much of the trial personally, because it was an absolute nightmare to put on anything above highly skilled in this game, because the AI is not very balanced. But we're just genuinely going to have to see where that goes, because at the minute, if I play on anything above highly skilled, I don't know about anyone else who might just say this is a skill issue, the AI rubber banding is just too bad. It's awful. I cannot stand it. If I do not bully my way into first place in the first 10%, you stick in second for the last 90%, which isn't great. And also, if you screw up once and you're not playing with rewind, you're done for. Personally, I don't like it, but I know some people might. On that note, I do think there is one last thing I want to talk about. Wait, actually no. There is one more thing, I'll get to that in a minute. But the last thing I want to talk about though is the microtransactions, the purchases. They're already doing the car pass, car packs. There was a pre-order bonus car which I didn't get because I didn't pre-order, which I do now own the car actually, but it'll be like labelled as a pre-order bonus car, which I personally don't like. But it's just frustrating that the game has just come out, there's already 500 cars in it, and they're already selling the, what to my knowledge is £25 for the car pass for all cars. It's probably more actually, and then another £5 to £7 each for just a collection of 5 cars which will come out every couple months. And then the £15 expansions, which they're only just discounting now the entirety of the last game, and that's expansions, but that's just modern games. There's not much else really to say about that. I mean, ideally they wouldn't have done it right now. I mean, I'm glad that, to be fair, from the release of the game for everyone on Tuesday the 19th, they only started doing Forzathon on Thursday the 21st, so it gave a couple days for you to actually get to grips with it and then start to learn the game and then jump into it. But I'd rather have it just held off for a couple of weeks maybe, rather than just jumping straight into it so people can take the time with the game, because if they want exclusive rewards they might have to just grind a ton and then jump into the game later, which they could end up just burning out. I mean, I've largely not really touched the game since I've finished playing it. I've touched it, but at the minute I've been playing other things, which I might make videos on. I've been playing a lot of Doom, I might talk about that. Other than that, I do think that I'm gonna actually move on to the thing I want to talk about. Minor gripe, they've largely got rid of the menu where once you start a race you can tune your car, change your difficulty, etc. I've noticed in a lot of races you just don't have that option. Once you select your car, you're jumping straight in. I don't like that, because if you start a race, walk off, get something while it's loading, come back, there's a good chance that the race has started and you are 50% behind. Personally, I don't like that. I know some people like having to click more buttons, but I'd rather have the extra option, or to back out. Let's say you screw up the settings on the race and you want to go in with a modern supercar and not a hot hatch. You've got the option to back out and change it. But that just isn't a thing anymore. Now, finally, other than that, I am now going to go. So thank you for watching this. Do the stuff, and I will see you in the next one. No idea what's coming next. I'll have to see. Goodbye.